Well, first, my good afternoon. Welcome to Wednesday's Mannin line. Beth with you for the next hour. Andy is on holiday this week. It's an open line, so we'd love to talk to you about anything that's on your mind this lunchtime. And you might have thoughts, comments or concerns about the news we heard yesterday evening that Isle of Man doctors are to strike next week for the first time in the island's history. We know that last month they voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action, 95% voting yes in a ballot over pay. What do you make of this? Can you understand why members of the BMA are preparing to take this action, or does your sympathy lie with Manx Care? Let us know what you think on that. Or anything else at all that might be on your mind. You can call 66 13 68. Howard is waiting to take your call, get you onto air. You can also text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. Let's go straight to the lines now, though, and join Betty first. Good afternoon, Betty.
Hi, Beth. I'd just like to respond to what Howard was saying yesterday about the MHKs. I still feel that we don't need as many, simply because we get a lot of the English laws, the UK laws, and we just put them into our own. Whatever we do, we just use them. So they don't really have to do that a great deal. I know they have to change some. And in the Andaman, it's quite a small place, and the commissioners deal with a lot of the local issues so that MHKs don't have to deal with those. I know they have their surgeries and they have to attend Timwall sessions, but I'm not sure what they do with the rest of their day, and I would like to challenge an MHK to come on and tell us what they do each day of the week.
And I think that would be interesting, Betty, because again, this is the thing that a lot of times we can make or have preconceptions about what we think a role involves. I think Howard's point yesterday was that while, as you say, some laws might just come from the UK and maybe adapted for the Isle of Man, in a lot of ways we are very unique, and a lot of people really treasure that. And actually, if we kind of just compare ourselves to a borough in the UK, then perhaps we're losing some of our identity there.
I don't know that we're losing our identity. I don't think we will lose our identity. But I just would like to know what, to my mind, I don't know what they do all day, you see. And I'd like somebody to come on and tell me and maybe convince me that we need as many MHKs as 24.
Have you asked your own MHK, Betty?
No, I haven't.
That might be a good place to start if you have concerns, but about what they're doing. You've got two representatives who may be able to help you out and sort of almost justify their position.
Yes, but perhaps if somebody came on and explained to everybody what they were doing, because I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that we have too many MHKs.
All right, Betty, thank you as ever. It's lovely to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
And I just want to say as well that I do respect Howard's, I respect what he says. I think he's great. And also, Bonzo, as far as Bonzo's concerned, I could say that he talks a lot of rubbish, but I'm too polite to say that.
I think you just did, Betty. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. That was Betty there, just following on from the conversation yesterday we had. It was about MLCs, first of all, and then moved into MHKs. Do we need as many politicians as we have? Lots of texts and emails about the doctor strike, which is happening next Wednesday and Thursday. We have been in touch with Manx Care and asked to speak to CEO Teresa Cope. We are expecting to be able to speak to her tomorrow afternoon. They have come back to to us. We have asked to speak to the Chief Minister and the Health Minister. We haven't heard anything from either of them yet. And actually, we went through all social media pages of MHKs and most of the MLCs as well. And it seems nobody has posted anything about this. We certainly haven't heard any comments from MHKs or MLCs on what is an historic move. The first time ever doctors in the Isle of Man will be going on strike over here. Let's go to the lines and join Julian. Good afternoon, Julian.
Hey, Beth, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, very good. It's a beautiful day out there, isn't it? You can start to feel a bit of warmth in that sunshine.
You certainly can. I'm glad you called, actually, because we had a text message in, and I'm sure you won't mind me putting some of this to you. This follows on from your call yesterday, if that's all right. So yesterday we were talking about something that we heard in the UK news, well, from further afield, about Spain and the tax that they're putting on second homes. And a texter ending 653 thinks we need to push back against some of your remarks from yesterday. Firstly, the term expats, they say, is a British term to make us feel superior in place of using the word immigrant, which is essentially what they are in Spain. They also say, secondly, the unemployment rate in Spain is nowhere near 25%. It's around half of that. And they're suggesting the figure you quoted was from 10 years ago due to the economic crisis. I think I did ask you where you got your facts from yesterday. And they also say, third, the 100% tax on foreign ownership has nothing to do with money. It's about stopping non-EU residents from buying up property and renting them out at extortionate rates. And this plan, they say, will not affect tourism. And they also go on to say that Denmark and Canada both have similar taxes. So just some points there. Obviously, Julian, I know you don't mind having a little bit of a conversation and justifying perhaps some of the comments you make.
Well, yeah, if you take the unemployment figure, for example, they are, I mean, if you believe 1.8% inflation for the Isle of Man, when you look at the prices and the fact I think diesel's just gone up again today by whatever percentage it is. However, what I was focusing on with that figure was the younger section of the workforce. And it's actually even worse than that. If you look at El País, which is the main newspaper, and they're online as well, if you do a Google search for El País, workforce under 25 unemployment rate, it is worse than that. It's 27.4% unemployment for 25-year-olds and under, which is pretty demoralizing for the up-and-coming workforce. So you can say, I mean, you know, Spain's worse than Greece, which I think was 11.2, but you have to focus in on who is the actual proper working force that's going to be, you know, you've got to look at the important working force, the ones who are vibrant, who are going to be, motivated to do things, not necessarily being held down by perhaps, having families and buying property or whatever. So it's actually worse than 25% for the under 25s. I get the point about expats, but then, you can have a residencia in Spain, but also be toing and froing. A lot of people tend to leave, say, in October, November, and then, for the winter months and stuff. So are they a true immigrant or not? I don't know. But, I was really getting at the point that if you're going to have if a country's dependent on tourism, like Spain, you've got to ask the question, how are you painting that country? If you're going to start having people leaving en masse, and don't forget, Greece, Turkey, they're saying, well, come to us. So, people will just migrate to a different jurisdiction that's showing a more friendly, to it. So, what else was there on there? Is there anything else that
No, I think I wonder, Julian, whether sometimes maybe some of the things that are said give the impression that actually the issue that you really have is with the notion of immigration itself. So I just, it was good to clarify some of those points. But actually, you wanted to talk, I understand, about the Tynwald Order paper next week.
Laurie Hooper is moving on item number 15, which can be seen on the Isle of Man government website. There's a page that shows the Tynwald Order papers. And it's talking about the all-island leisure rate. And I'm just interested in the wording, and it's quite a short paragraph, but the bit, and I'll quote it, says, with funding from this rate ring-fenced and allocated to the funding of the regional swimming pools and the National Sports Centre. So you always, with lawyers and accountants especially, you have to be very careful about your wording. Is that two different ring fences, one for the National Sports Centre and one for the regional swimming pools? And this, one of the reasons it made me think of this was, if you remember, Manx Radio reported a year ago that there was an overspend at the NSC of £300,000 over and above its 1.7 million budget. So that's a 17.5% overspend at the NSC in the 2023 year. And it'd be kind of interesting to know who signed off on that and why didn't they ring the alarm bell when it was approaching, say, 15 million, 1.5 million. Because nobody ever said, with the accountability as to exactly why is it gone up to 300,000. I also understand that the AstroTurf is in bad shape. So if we're going to talk about fair allocation of the funding between the pools, is this going to extend to we're going to take extra money from the other regional pools because, the tiles still haven't been fixed that were broken last year, despite being refurbished in 2018? Are they going to start using massive amounts to fix the AstroTurf? Because that's not very fair. So I think it's important that we get to the point is the allocation, if we're going to have an all-island rate for all the pools, are they all going to be treated the same? Is there going to be a board appointed that's independent from government for the NSC, like the other pools? There's a few questions there that I think probably need asking. Is the NSC effectively going to be the point of focus, and you're going to end up defunding Peel, Ramsey and Castletown pools instead of just Castletown that has obviously been defunded for years and years?
All right, Julian, thank you very much for raising those points. As you say, Tynwald coming up next week, so it's a good time to get some of those answered. And I appreciate you taking the comments that have been sent in as well, following your comments yesterday. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Julian. That was Julian there. Now we can join Dorothy, who is on line 1. Let me just get the computer to work properly. Let's see. Dorothy, are you there?
I am indeed, Beth. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really in a good mood, I'll tell you why. We used to speak many years ago in the days of James Davies when I worked for a Manx stockbroker. I used to speak to you regarding the evening report.
Yes, I do remember.
Great fun. Do you? Darling, this is in praise of excellence. I know Isle of Man Energy get bad press, but I received a bill this week, which is an estimated bill, totally inaccurate. So I called the call centre and gave them the correct reading and got a bill that night, again, even more erratic than the previous one. So I popped a note through the door of Murdoch House, not expecting to hear from anybody at all. And this morning I got a phone call from a lovely gentleman called Gary, who sorted out my problem and was charming.
Oh, how lovely, Dorothy. Do you know what? What is so lovely?
Manx. But I tell you, but it's so rare that you get the service this young man gave. And he was utterly lovely.
And your bill's sorted?
Well, he said so, and I believe him.
I think, Dorothy, as we say very often on this programme, we know it can be a place where people like to come and sort of maybe get things off their chest if they're worried or concerned or a little bit upset about something. But equally, we do love to hear these stories and give shout outs to people who do go above and beyond in their day jobs.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Lovely.
And I must say, too, I just think the man in line's great.
Oh, Dorothy, you're amazing. You're putting us all in a good mood. Thank you so much for calling. It's lovely to talk to you again.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
Lots of love. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Dorothy, who I think has got one of the best voices I've ever heard. And just talking about Isle of Man Energy and Gary, who she spoke to this morning, who sorted out that problem. So lovely to give them a shout out. Let's go to some of the texts that we've got in so far. Peter says, can I just say that yesterday's text message from someone saying replace the 4 MLCs with 4 air traffic controllers makes so much sense and would serve the island better. Again on about cyclists, says texter ending 490. Cyclists camouflaged in black. Why? Now we have the new piercing LED lights. I'm a cyclist and a car driver, so I see both sides of this. The lights, as I understand, on high beam are for daylight use. There are many settings on them. I have one. I think we must have all been faced with a blinding and flashing strobe. Seems a bit counterproductive wanting to be seen but blinding everyone. LED lights appear not to be as safe as perhaps intended, and it is the same with car headlights. Could you please ask Manx Care, says texter ending 502, why testing for bowel cancer starts at age 60 on the island, when just yesterday England, followed by Scotland and Wales, started testing at age 50. It was previously 54. Are we on the island less likely to suffer from bowel cancer? Texter ending 645 says buses are extremely dirty. Drivers should be paid to keep them clean after their shift of driving them. I think we'd probably have to ask a question about what the process is for cleaning buses. It must happen. Your MHKs will say that they've been going through emails, says texter ending 614. G stands for greedy people, says texter ending 505. Text ending 223, question on MLCs. Any MHK that loses their seat at the election should not be allowed to become a member of LegCo for a period of 10 years. An MHK who loses their key seat might be biased and too friendly towards the Chief Minister and Comyn. Mark says, I think it's funny how people talk about losing our identity when it comes to the structure of government, but are silent on issues like immigration. Texter ending 23 here says, good on Betty for asking what an MHK does all day. How about the time spent planning luxurious faraway holidays, meaningless social media posts, or just plotting how to sit on the fence on important issues? How many MHKs actually support, for example, the wind farm at Erie Staine? Nobody knows. I think, to be fair, MHKs and MLCs are allowed some downtime, aren't they? Texter ending 011, how many hours have you given this bloke over the past 12 months with the same boring stuff? It's getting boring and stale. It's really rubbish. Well, if you have something to say, please do call in. If we've got people on the line and there are people waiting, we will sort of move things along to make sure that we speak to everyone, because we really do appreciate people taking the time to call in. So please, if you've got something to say, absolutely get on the phone. And JK says, regarding that gas bill, never mind Gary being wonderful, there shouldn't have been a cock-up in the first place. Howard, some messages on WhatsApp as well.
You on WhatsApp, and Julian makes a very good comment and informative, says a cautious Big John in Ramsey. He has good informative comments, but he has to exercise caution when looking on the internet for figures, as they are usually distorted. A cautious Big John. Pays to be cautious, I guess, one way or another. And yes, it is one of those things, again, there is so much information out there. It is sorting the wheat from the chaff now, isn't it? You can go out and you can Google things, you can search around, you can find pretty much figures for anything you want to find figures for. What you don't know for certain, of course, is whether they're accurate or not. Is Julian aware, says Nigel, in Lanzarote they are removing redundant wind turbines? Julian always has correct details and up-to-date information. Or maybe not. Big John says be cautious, but see where you're coming from. The Spanish government, he goes on, is struggling with the amount of immigrants from North Africa. So all Julian is saying is true and factual, says Nigel. And yes, read the gas bill. I think it was lovely to hear Dorothy again. Put me in a good mood as well. But as you mentioned there, Beth, I think, yes, JK wasn't quite...
Wasn't feeling it.
I just need to hear Dorothy's voice and it instantly puts me in a good mood.
Oh, it really does. 166 177 studio@manxradio.com are the contact details if you'd like to text or email. But even better, 66 13 68 is the number to call if you'd like to talk about anything. I was wondering if anybody would want to talk about the proposed doctors' strike, which is supposedly going to happen from next Wednesday for 48 hours. As I say, we have contacted several people to talk about this, particularly if you've got a hospital appointment. We want to find out what might be happening. We know it's going to be so-called Christmas Day cover on the days that the strike action is taking place at Manx care sites. So, what exactly does that mean if you have got an appointment? We have been asked that question several times. And as I say, we are expecting to be able to speak to the CEO of Manx Care, Teresa Cope, tomorrow. Haven't heard back from the Health Minister or Chief Minister as yet, but hopefully somebody will come back to us in due course. And as I say, no MHKs seem to be commenting about this news either. So we shall wait and see.
When the Mannin line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
But fear not, you've got another half an hour to get live on air this afternoon. 66 13 68. We'd love to talk to you about anything at all that might be on your mind. You can also text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. Now, something we get asked quite often is, do we vet the texts and emails that come in before we read them out? The only thing we try and do is give them a quick skim. Just make sure there's no personal sites in there. We do have to be careful about what we read out, but hopefully this will prove to you that we do read out pretty much everything. Texter ending 762. I hope the doctor strike doesn't harm our MHKs. I was thinking who'd sort out their hemorrhoids from constant chair polishing and who would remove the splinters from fence sitting.
Yes, that is obviously the caller's view, not Beth's or mine. But we see, well, maybe you might see where they come from. You might totally disagree. Get in contact and let us know, of course. Will, changing the subject a little bit, says, will we see the horse tramway completed before it's 150 years old next year? Is that right? 150th anniversary next year. Well, I wouldn't hold your breath just yet, Will. He goes on to say, would rather see this than those silly wind turbines. Steve says, could you clarify with Julian from his comments yesterday that he is fine with British expats in a country but doesn't like African immigrants? As there is a name for that, all right, we know what that is. He completely avoided the question earlier once again, according to Steve. Re the state of Manx buses. Surely it's the fault and responsibility of the passengers. I've just returned from Germany and I spent a lot of time on public transport there. I didn't see any feet on seats and very little consumption of franchise taken away, such as coffee or sweets or sandwiches and the like. Julian for Chief Minister, by the way. Another Julian in Port St Mary. Well, there's an election coming up in 2026. You never know. You never know. Be careful what you wish for. But if Julian wants to stand, he's more than welcome, I'm sure. The buses, we get told, are cleaned and refuelled at night. It's not part of the driver's job, says WhatsApp at 569. Here's one for you, Beth, just to, again, put a smile on your face if Dorothy didn't already. I doubt if people will notice with the doctor striking. And also, we'd like to say we love it when you're on the Mannin line, Beth. We all love tuning in to listen when you're on, says Marty.
Oh, thank you, Marty. Des says, I, for one, wouldn't notice if the doctors go on strike for a week or two. Read the doctor's strike says, texter ending 382, have they all lived here for more than 5 years or even 10 years to hold our beautiful island to this huge pay hike? It should be in all new doctor contracts. They can't do this unless they've been here for 10 years. We need this stamped out so it never happens again. They should be grateful they're here, enjoying such a wonderful island. To give the money to employees, more hands-on nurses and beds and food and cleaning assistants, which should also be increased. Pat says, regarding national insurance, as we all know, the NI fund is in crisis. Over the past 6 months, I've emailed at least 8 MHKs, says Pat, including the Chief Minister and Treasury Minister. I've asked the question, why is the use of self-employed in the construction industry by contractors being used to avoid paying proper NI contributions, and why is it not being policed? Contractors tend to only take on staff as self-employed to avoid paying employers' side of NI contributions. Many being employed this way are not genuinely self-employed. For every 1,000 employed this way, says Pat, it avoids $7.5 million per annum in NI. Today, only one MHK has replied, and it seems they are having difficulties getting answers from Treasury or fellow MHKs. Pat says this is an abuse that needs to be stopped to help protect the fund. I agree with Julian, says texter ending 705, with regards to the wording in the All-Ireland Leisure Ring-Fenced Fund. I coach at the NSC track, says this texter. It needs replacing. It's now full of holes. The PA system doesn't work and the stand roof is on its last legs. We've been told that most of this will be done for the 2029 Island Games 4 years away. I hope we can still pass UK athletic standards so we can even hold local athletic meetups. Hopefully the fund will help with everything. And text ending 423 says, just pay the doctors what they're asking for. They deserve it far more than Manx care managers. Our lives are literally in their hands. It's difficult to get doctors to come to the Isle of Man. Manx care needs to make it as attractive as possible. It'll be cheaper in the long term to pay the doctors properly rather than have to pay extortionate locum fees. Also, doctors used to be able to supplement their income by doing some private work outside their NHS contracted hours. The closure of the private patients unit stopped this. Doctors in the UK still have this option, another reason why we can't get more doctors here. If Manx Care continues to limit the doctors' ability to earn and won't pay them what they deserve to be paid, we have little chance of attracting more doctors to come here. I think the doctors should get the pay rise they are asking for. I am not a doctor, says this texter, and have no connection to any doctors, so this is not a biased view, simply the view of a concerned patient. As far as I understand it, actually, some doctors can still and are still doing some private work at different locations with different companies. But thank you very much indeed for your message. Charlie has messaged, I'm not going to mention the MHK that they do, but they question what this MHK does. 3.5 years now, they say nothing has been done in the area that they live in, still waiting for a footpath there to be repaired. The mobile classrooms at the school there still not repaired, and really Charlie questioning what this MHK does, and that goes back to the comments we heard from Betty right at the start of the programme, talking about whether we need as many MHKs as we have. Glad that lady got her gas sorted. I've got a tail on the other side, so I've been phoning Glasgow 6 times to try and sort a bill. Do you mean Glasgow, or do you mean the gas? We'll go with you. They gave a rebate before Christmas. It took 6 months to get it. They sent a massive bill in January. Obviously then shouldn't have been sent. Rebate, they couldn't pay them. Had to make a trip up to the post office. It's pathetic that the government, says Kelly, has allowed all of these problems with gas. Let's go to the lines though now, and we can join Jill on line 1. Good afternoon, Jill.
Oh, hello, Beth. I'm just talking about play area again. I've been talking to Andy about it for about 4 years now, a play area in Douglas, and I've been sadly reminded about it this morning as I was in the Strand Shopping Centre. I sat next to, catching my breath, a lovely Ghanaian lady and her 2 little children, maybe under the age of 3, the 2 children. And she looked ever so sad, and I said, "Whatever's the matter?" She said, "Nowhere to go here with the children." She doesn't have a car, obviously. She can't go to Oncombe Park, which I've been told when I've been whinging about it. You know, she's got 2 prams, well, 1 pram and shopping. So I said, well, you know, we'll be getting a play area soon, sometime never, I guess. I went to Ballacameen School. I talked to the MHKs about it. I can't understand why we can't get just a swing and 2 slides that they ripped down when the wall was broken. I went to the open day and talked to the architects who are doing this massive, big, super-duper scheme, skateboard thing and everything. And I think there's 2 years waiting list for this. Also, in the theme packet, there's not even a play area anymore. I had my son come from Munich with my 2-year-old granddaughter. They had a 4-hour wait because of weather. Very early in the morning they had to go at stupid o'clock. No play area there either. What is it with children and not being able to do anything in Douglas City? Can't understand it.
Do you remember that play area in the sea terminal? And it's
yes, I do.
It's a difficult one. Obviously, the prom play area, we know what happened with that. I mean, that was circumstances beyond people's control. But it is difficult, I guess, if you've got...
It's 4 years, Beth.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the MHKs with children, they will have a swing in their back garden. Unfortunately, I don't have a back garden. Otherwise, I would build a play area. What about the Summerlang site? Let's put a nice little remembrance for people who died and have children. It doesn't need to be a big ship that this architect, who isn't even from here, he's not a Douglas architect, a young boy from here, he's from across. It's going to cost a lot of money. We don't need all that. Can they not find a corner? Why not the Villa Marina Gardens? Let's just put where these mothers can sit and meet. There are a lot of foreigners here. I've bumped into them. Polish, Ghanaian, Bulgarian. They have nowhere to go. There are little clubs, but they're scared of... They don't even know how to join a little club. It's just, we need something, please, please. Just a swing, not expensive. I'll buy it myself. We didn't have much then on the prom, but we sat and talked to the mothers. It's for their mental health, Beth. So I was reminded today, so if any MHKs are listening, Please don't wait for this big project. I think it's 2 years down the line. There are people here new to this island who need to integrate and talk to other young mums. I rest my case.
Jill,
thank you, Beth.
Brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to call.
Thank you, Beth. Bye-bye.
Take care. That was Jill talking about the need for play areas, particularly in Douglas. And if you've got young children, we'll be really interested to hear your points. Let's join Ken on line 2 now. Good afternoon, Ken.
Afternoon there. I wish I could say I was amazed at the delay in repairing the linkspan at Heysham. What a total... I don't know whether who's paying for it. And then reading the report, they seem to involve a sea truck ship as well. One of the freighters got somehow involved. I don't know if that's true or not. But it's actually put me off travelling as a foot passenger because of delays of getting you off. Whereas the twice have been, you get off and you go right halfway around Heysham. Whereas you go, when you get put on, you actually stay in the harbour complex. I think it's all to do with safety, but it's just amazing the time it's taking.
So just to remind people, Ken, this is the news that Peel Ports Group says it's nearing the end of the procurement process for repairs to the Manxman's usual berth at Heysham, unlikely to be fixed until April. We know back in August last year, the Manxman collided with a wall. It was attempting to dock at the Lancashire port and the vessel suffered minor damage. Its berth at the port was also hit as well.
Yeah.
And as you quite rightly...
August.
Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it, Ken? Again, I guess we don't know what goes on and what's involved in trying to sort out these sort of things. But I take your point that foot passengers have been boarding and disembarking via coaches for several months now. And this is because the steam packet says there's no safe route by foot between the terminal and the vessel. And we know as well...
Harbours are dangerous places.
Yeah, and freight also taking longer to be loaded.
Yeah.
I don't know, what's the answer though then, Ken?
Well, should have got repaired sooner, basically. Why does it take so long? But on another point, a personal matter, income tax. Has anybody else overpaid too much? And I've spoken to the income tax office who say, well, most people prefer to overpay so they're not owing money.
Okay, so this is a thing that's happened to you. Have you been charged or you've been paying more?
Last year, we overpaid £600. It looks like this year we're going to overpay $660 because of the tax code in the system.
Do you know, though, Ken, some people quite like getting that rebate back.
Well, yes, but it's your money. You know, well, yes, exactly. That's another... I often think that sometimes... people answer the phone like Mannin Energy. That's what they said. Oh, people like to overpay so they don't owe money. Well, I'm just wondering what the percentages of people who overpay and get a refund as to the people that owe money for personal taxation. Just a question out there, see if anybody knows.
All right, Ken. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Okay, bye.
Take care. That was Ken on a couple of issues there, talking about that linkspan at Heysham, but also about income tax as well. Hearing Jill says, text ending 313, isn't it desperate that government plans to spend hundreds of millions of pounds on going green but can't even provide basic play facilities? Ted says the Eastern Area Plan and the North and West Area Plan both evidenced a major shortage of play areas in all local authority areas. No MHK is interested. There are no proposals for new play areas in any local authority. Couldn't we please have a play area outside the unused public spaces and publicly funded spot in front of the Sefton Hotel? Would you be up for that? That's the cultural area there on the pram. Susan says, well, Jill's constantly moaning about the prom and how marvellous Germany is where her son lives. Maybe she should think about moving closer to him. I think, well, maybe Jill's just raising an issue, particularly after speaking to that mother of two young young children this morning who is clearly finding it difficult to go and find somewhere to take her children when it's a lovely day, somewhere that's within walkable distance. Steve says the steam packet asking for more adults with school trips is a good choice. I was on a Maybank holiday last year. The boat was really busy. I ended up sitting in front of the Seacat group of children from Ramsey Grammar. There was terrible behaviour, throwing balls around, hitting people, throwing jam, milk cartons that they got from the cafe. The teachers, according to Steve, sat there doing nothing. They had to inform the steam packet staff, and security had to sit with us for about an hour during the trip to try and stop them. It's not about the numbers of adults to children, but probably the skill of teachers to marshal those children. They weren't kids, they were teenagers, said Steve. Again, I think we'll go back to what we said yesterday. Can't tar all children with the same brush. We know that there are pupils from Ramsey Grammar School who've been praised previously on this programme for their behaviour, but I take the point that it's an individual experience. Text ending 207 says, I was on Ward 1 over the weekend. Fantastic doctors, staff, cleaners, everyone. But they didn't even have any pillows. I was given 2 pillowcases with rolled up sheets inside them. It was only talking to another nurse from another ward that I got a pillow off her. What does this say about Manx Care? No wonder the staff are fed up with the conditions. Again, I stress staff are wonderful. And this texter says it's the management who are tucked up in bed in the early hours who don't see or experience this ridiculous situation. We know that Manx Care are expecting to continue those discussions. I mean, is it fair to say that the management's completely oblivious and not taking any part in this? I don't think that probably is a completely fair statement. We are going to speak to the CEO of Manx Care, Teresa Cope, tomorrow. We have heard back from Manx Care. We haven't heard back from the Chief Minister or Health Minister as yet.
Yes, indeed. It's causing some interest. I was just talking to Jill there. Derek's been in contact. Now, tell me to shut up if you read Derek out already while I was talking to Jill. If there's one doctor earning less than 40k, give them a rise, says Derek. But when some doctors and consultants, plus radiologists at Nobles, can earn the best part of £500,000 a year with their salary and private consultations, which they all do, even with Ward 19, says Derek, why can they claim that they need a 12% pay rise? We're still backdated to 2018. Derek says, I believe it's a disgrace and they should go to the food bank and see what really hard up people and pensioners are like. No one who is earning more than £50,000 on the island should be allowed to strike. Doctors and nurses, even some nurses, according to Derek, get over £100,000. It might be true if they're at the top of the ladder, Graham, Derek, I dare say, but they all still take the pay rise. They should all be ashamed if they do. The comments there of Derek. Texter 775, this is getting back to the play areas again, says, hi Beth, I'm sure that men in sheds would love the mission of creating a safe play area, swings and such like for our children. An interesting call. Just while you were talking a moment ago, I had a caller on who didn't want to go on air, couldn't tempt her, but she called to say there's a lovely play area at the end of Tynwald Street in Douglas which children can use. And just finally, Donald has been on, and we quite often hear comments. I think you had someone earlier on, didn't you, saying, oh, we're fed up of hearing Julian and Bonzo and such like. Hi guys, says Donald, I love listening to all the local listeners like Bonzo, Julian, etc, etc. They talk great sense and they should be in the studio once a week giving out good advice about all things Manx.
OK, there's an idea. Michelle Moan will be on television tonight at 9, or maybe it's tomorrow, says Manx Will, if people want to see what the situation is there. Alan says, regarding doctors' pay, apologies if this has been covered, but I'm just wondering what the annual cost of meeting the BMA hospital doctors' claim would be, and if agreed, how much extra Manx Care would need adding to their budget. I can see the day fast approaching when the health service will cost £500 million a year. How will this be funded? A rise in income tax, or perhaps charging a fee to visit your GP? Well, Alan, one of the things I have asked for actually is a list of salaries, so we can actually work out what this 12% actually looks like depending on different doctors' salaries. Thank you very much to texter ending 762. Southern Andy says, regarding your previous text referring to GPs as greedy, perhaps they might like to consider the years of training at their own expense across. So many people seem to perceive doctors are overpaid that it's until they need treatment that they think our doctors are fantastic. Can people, says Andy, appreciate you have to pay for training and the experience that these very professional practitioners have amassed for our benefit? Don't forget you get what you pay for. If you only want to pay peanuts, do not expect much medical experience. Why can't the Manx government pay the international pay levels for all medical employees? Perhaps MHKs should start at newly qualified doctor rates for the first 5 years. The buses are absolutely filthy at the moment, says Charles. I can't even read my company's advert on the back of them. Do you think they'll give us a reduction in the advertising fee? That does happen sometimes, doesn't it, when your cars and vehicles are absolutely covered in dust. CC says it's imperative we are allowed freedom of speech, and Mannin Line gives people this opportunity. I really appreciate it when, say, Juan or Julian call, as they have on our side, the facts, trying to help others, and they're not rude or nasty about others. We need the Mannin Line. So CC says a big thank you for that. The difference is expats are legally in Spain, the others are illegal immigrants. The word illegal spells it out, says Jeff. Somebody else says, interesting, Julian did not provide any reference to his observation yesterday that Spanish hospitals have queues of people coming out of the doors around the block, nor did he qualify his statement when given the chance. It makes you wonder if he gets his sources from reputable sources or just falls down rabbit holes. On the topic of MHK, says texter ending 557, this is John. Has anyone seen the Peel MHK since they were appointed? What have they actually done for their constituents? And to clarify, says text ending 423, I know some doctors are doing private consultations, but they can't do any surgeries. Anyone needing surgery must go off the island to have it done. What a waste of an opportunity for Manx Care to supplement their income with private surgeries. You think, says text ending 762, that government would have appointed a political genius or MHK to sort out the gas situation and the lack of a local point of contact. Somebody is saying that the play area at Nobles Park is amazing. You don't have to pay, and there are plenty of facilities up there. Again, I suppose it depends whereabout you are and if you've got transport, if you're quite far away from that. But I take your point, that's a great facility up there. When you phone Manx Gas, you are diverted to a call centre in Glasgow. Oh, thank you very much for qualifying that one, Kelly. There's nobody over here, she said. Yeah, love that idea of men and sheds creating a play area. Says the playing surface at the bowl needs to be replaced. It's reached the end of its life with holes that need to be patched. This was reported to the North West Counties League at the last FC Isle of Man game, possibly going to be replaced by the Island Games, but says it needs to be sorted out sooner than that. Des says the answer is, to Ken's call, don't wreck the linkspan in the first place. Again, somebody else saying, what's wrong with Nobles Park? Plenty of swings. Yeah, it is a great facility up there. Obviously, you've got the smaller toddler area, Totlot it used to be called, I think, and you've got the splash zone up there in the summer as well, and the bigger park just down the way for older children, but I guess it's a matter of transport for some people. Hillary says, I totally agree with Jill about the play areas or lack of them. As soon as the one on the prom was lost, it should have been replaced. I went to that meeting and said all children need is a slide, swings and roundabout. Douglas councillors don't seem to be interested in the basic requirements of residents. As residents, we need to act, and these things need sorting out. Andreas is just in the process of getting a new play area in the village, says Paul. Also, I like to overpay to utilities, as the price of gas fluctuating all the time can catch you out sometimes. For all the greedy doctors and all the depressed play-weary mothers, there is a boat in the morning. Thank you very much indeed. I've been on the Seacat on 2 or 3 occasions where school children have been on at the same time. School trips, I guess. Once or twice were to play sports representing the island. Twice I was sat very close to the group. They were in a sectioned off reserved area at the front and I was a couple of rows behind. I have only experienced, as Yvonne, well-behaved pupils with good behaviour and manners. On the subject of buses, says texter ending 049, I spoke to a driver when I was on the bus last night and asked why the buses are so dirty on the outside. He replied with, due to the weather, the outsides haven't been washed due to the yard being icy. So I understand the buses, that people have fuel and clear them throughout the day, not just at night. And I guess that's a really good point to make, that sometimes it's circumstances beyond people's control and why things aren't necessarily done up to our level of expectation.
Absolutely, and it's a very complex one. Just someone in defence, Al, saying, I travelled on the Mannin from Liverpool last year. On board was an adult rugby club group. They were loud, drinking heavily, chanting and singing with bad language, which my young children asked me about, intimidated, and the staff did nothing. The security staff on board just stood by, and when I witnessed them taking a group photo of the group. So it's not just the kids. In fact, the Liverpool crossing is regularly unpleasant, quite often due to rowdy adults. Could there be double standards, says T. Packet? Well, that question needs to be asked. Someone else just phoned in to say, reference the dirty buses syndrome. I think this is on the outside rather than the inside, it has to be said. Of course, we've just had very icy weather. All the roads have been heavily gritted and such like, and that always causes far more muck on the outside of your vehicles. Now, of course, you can clean it off, I guess, but I suppose at the moment, with it being very wet after an icy period, they just get dirty again, so maybe they just do it once a week. I have to say, the last time I was on a bus, which was only a week or so ago, the inside certainly was pretty clean.
Good to know. Text ending 328 says, if £500,000 is correct, that's crazy. It's shocking. Doctors only pay 22% tax. It would be 45% tax in England, wouldn't it? Text ending 645 says, I pay for private healthcare, so why should I pay for the NHS? And people scared of rabbit holes are ignorant. There's no room on this flat planet for ignorance, says texter ending 311. And just a couple more messages on WhatsApp. No nurses get anywhere near the £100,000 salary, says Jewin. The only exception may be the holder of the title chief nurse. It's certainly not a nurse in real life. I needed a letter from a doctor, says text ending 330. There was only a couple of paragraphs. It cost me £20. Every expat is a person who does live in their own country and nothing to do with English being superior, says Des. And the bus wash is currently broken, and that is why buses are not being cleaned. That is a text in from M. G says, doctors want parity of pay to UK doctors. Let's have parity of services here instead of only off-island travel for treatment. Is it right that doctors in the UK accepted, says text ending 404, a 6% pay increase? So why do the doctors on the Isle of Man seek 12%? They pay less here, they pay less NI here. Let's get some real doctors. Deb says, tell Jill there's a boat in the morning. Oh, and this just from Roger, who has messaged in on the subject of buses. Doctors, sorry, I'm getting so confused now. Doctors should have parity in their pay, but not a percentage increase. They may already have an uplift for the Isle of Man. We need to stop looking at percentage increases and ask those consultants to be transparent about their pay, says text end 887. They earn significantly more than their UK counterparts and pay 20% tax instead of the UK 45% rate. Yes, junior doctors need their pay scales reviewing, but there should not be a blanket pay rise across all doctors' scales. It's inequitable to the Manx taxpayer. So I think we got through all the texts and emails. Thank you very much, as ever, for your contributions for today's programme. Thank you to Howard for being on the phones and reading out some of those messages that I couldn't get to. The next programme is Christy D with 1 to 3, and then Alex in the afternoon at 3. Whatever you're doing this afternoon, have a good one. Talk to you soon.